Hi, v1 developers recently released a new version, 1.2, and they promised some great performance improvements compared to the previous version, 1.1. So I decided to check this and see how big of a difference will it make in some real-world scenarios. So let's find out together. I performed 3 separate tests to compare these technologies across different scenarios, aiming to understand how each performs in varied use cases. The first scenario is a basic test, an API route that returns a hard-coded response. The second scenario is closer to a real-world application, where an API route retrieves a random selection of 30 elements from a PostgreSQL database. The third scenario is an API route that generates GVT token. Now let's take a look into the code for our test cases. I used the same Elysia.js application for both options. I have put most of the code into the main index.ts file. Here is the first case. Here is the second one. And here is the third one. Now let's take a look into the database structure. I created pretty standard user table with fields like ID, name, email, password, some additional info and timestamps for records. Table has 2 indexes, ID as a primary key and unique index for email field. To test both applications simultaneously, I deployed them on the cloud using DigitalOcean, which offers a reasonable pricing model and all the necessary features for this setup. Each application server runs on the smallest available instance with 1 CPU and 512 MB of RAM, allowing us to see how much performance we can achieve with minimal resources. For the database server, I used a larger instance to ensure that its performance wouldn't become a bottleneck during testing. I used Prometheus and Grafana on my local machine to monitor and visualize the performance metrics. Let's begin our first test. Right from the start, while the applications are still idle, we can see a little bit better metrics for the newest version. Let's wait to see how both versions will work under some load. Right from the start, I can see that most of the metrics are a little bit better for the newest version. But surprisingly, the average latency is a little bit better for the older version. Let's wait to see how both versions will work under heavier load, and which one will show better performance at the end. And now, finally, all of the metrics are better for the newest version. I expected that, actually. Let's now speed up our test to see the final results for both versions. Interestingly, that 1.1 version starts to drop some of the requests, but the amount of failed requests is very small, less than 1%. I can see now that the newer version is much more stable than the old one in terms of handling large amount of requests. The chart shows significant fluctuations for the old version, while the new one demonstrates a stable and consistent growth. And I can see that most of the metrics are better for the new version as well. Let's wait for this test to finish to see the final numbers. At this point, I can see that both applications have reached their limits. Let's stop the test and review the results. From the charts, we can see that most of the time, the metrics were much better for the new version of v1. Let's now check the numbers. As we can see, all the metrics except max RPS are better for the new version. Let's start our second test case with the real-world scenario of database selects. Right from the start, we can see that the newer version shows significantly better values for all the metrics. Let's speed up the test to see the final results. Right now I can see that the newer version consumes a little bit more CPU than the old one, but all other metrics are significantly better for newer version. At this point, older version starts to fail some small amount of requests. I believe it will start failing significantly soon. And now it fails most of the requests. Let's stop our test. Let's review the results. As we can see in this test, the newer version was a clear leader across all the metrics. Let's move on to our final test case with JWT token generation. At the beginning we can see that the older version looks a little bit better, but this situation changed quickly, and now the newer version shows a significant improvement over the older one across all the metrics. Let's wait to see the final results of the test. As we can see at this moment, both applications have reached their limits. Let's stop our test and review the results. As we can see in this test, the newer version is a clear winner as well, showing us significant improvement over. In the end, we can see a significant performance improvement in the new version of BAN. So if you want to squeeze out the most of the performance from your application, it is worth upgrading to the newer version of BAN. Especially the performance improved in the real-world scenarios, like database selects and JWT. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe and share this video with others. Let me know in the comments which framework do you prefer and if there are other benchmarks you would like to see. Also feel free to check out my Patreon and other resources linked below to support the channel. Stay tuned for more insights on development and architecture.